The year is 2001. For over a decade, Ted has been writing about his hobby of caving. He's written about how to take care of yourself when exploring underground, the gear you need, and stories of the amazing caves he's seen. And these aren't your normal caves. We're talking about caves full of ice, underwater caves, caves with huge chambers bigger than cathedrals, and even caves with bizarre formations. And Ted is planning his next trip, this time with his friend B. They are heading to a small village in West Virginia. They are going to explore a cave nobody has ever been in before. The entrance to this cave is hidden in the hills. It's a steep hole that leads down into the ground, and at the bottom is a narrow tunnel. According to the locals, this cave has never been fully explored. At the end of the tunnel is a drop that's too high to jump, so they will have to lower themselves into a pit of total darkness. But B's dog is whimpering. It can hear something coming from inside. The pair ignored this and begin making their way into the unknown. This cave has many tight spaces where you need to squeeze past rocks, and after a few hours, they reach a chamber. The ceiling is too low for them to stand up straight, so they must crawl forward on their hands and knees. Something feels off about this place, like the air itself is watching them. They crawl for what feels like hours until they reach a wall. Ted feels around and finds a small gap between the rocks. He squeezes through and emerges in another chamber. But this place is huge. It's bigger than any cave he's ever seen before. There's also a weird sound coming from the far end. Ted thinks that maybe he's hearing crickets. But why would crickets be chirping inside a cave? He goes back to the opening and calls out to B. Nobody answers. Ted calls out again, but this time he hears a knock. Somebody or something is knocking back. This knock makes the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. Then Ted sees something that makes him run back through the tunnels. He doesn't stop running until he reaches the surface of the earth. Back in the daylight, Ted feels the adrenaline start to fade. He needs to find B. He runs back to the cave, but when he goes inside, he can't find anybody. The cave seems empty. Is B still inside somewhere? Or did B run away in fear? Then Ted sees something. There's a small pile of rocks blocking the opening to the second chamber. Ted realizes that something is very wrong. He pushes aside the rocks and crawls through the opening, but there's no sign of B anywhere. He then notices something in the distance. He shines his light towards it and realizes it's a pile of clothes. One of the piles of rocks falls over, revealing a helmet. That's B's helmet. Suddenly, the hair on the back of Ted's neck stands up. He knows that B is dead, but there are no bones or blood anywhere. Ted searches the entire chamber, but there is no sign of what happened to his friend. It's almost like B vanished into thin air. Ted spends the next few days searching the area. He goes to the police and tells them what happened. They don't believe him because there is no evidence of a crime. There are no witnesses. All they have is Ted's word. Ted goes back to the cave alone and begins searching again. He crawls through the tight passages and checks every chamber, but it's like B disappeared. Then Ted notices something. The ground is trembling. It's coming from the far end of the cave. Ted shines his light towards the noise and sees a small crack in the rocks. It looks like a small hole, but something is moving in front of it. Ted grabs his gun. Whatever is causing the tremors means him harm. He aims his light at the hole and waits. Then something crawls out. It's humanoid, but it has no eyes or mouth. Its skin is gray and slimy, and it has sharp claws. Ted screams and fires multiple shots at the creature, but it just keeps moving forward. Before Ted knows what's happening, the creature pounces. It knocks him out and drags him towards the opening of the cave. Ted wakes up in a forest. He's naked and injured. His leg is broken and he has deep scratches all over his arms. He manages to make it home, but nobody believes him when he tells them about the creature. Ted decides to write about his experiences in a blog. He shares the story and people immediately start responding. Some think that Ted is insane. Others say that there are creatures living inside caves. Some people believe Ted made it all up to get attention, but most people are frightened by the story. Years pass and Ted continues to write. He talks about his adventures caving, the equipment you need, and even about the terrifying monster he fought. People who read his blog tell him that there is no such thing as a cave monster, but Ted knows what he saw that day. He kept waiting for the government to show up and tell him that it was all a dream, but nobody ever came. So Ted continued his life. He married, had kids, and got a job. But the monster always stayed on his mind. Sometimes he would have nightmares about the creature chasing him through the caves. Ted never forgot what he owed his wife. He promised her that he would never go back to the cave. But one day he gets a message from a fan. A young guy reached out to Ted and told him that he wanted to explore the cave with him. Ted didn't want to at first, but eventually agreed. Maybe if he had somebody with him, he wouldn't be scared. So Ted and the young explorer go back to the cave. But when they reach the chamber where B disappeared, they see that the walls have shifted. The cave has changed. The two men decide to go further into the cave, but this is when things start to get strange. There are new tunnels and chambers that weren't there before. This cave is alive and changing. Then they notice something. There's water dripping from the ceiling. It's warm water. Ted touches it and realizes it's steaming hot. This can't be right. Caves should be freezing cold. But this cave has scalding water. And that's when they realize what they're up against. This cave is no longer just a natural wonder. It's something sinister, something that's growing. The cave has taken on a life of its own. They run as fast as they can, trying to find the exit. But there are thousands of tunnels and chambers. How can they escape? Ted trips and falls to the ground. The young explorer tries to help him up, but Ted tells him to run and save himself. The cave has already claimed one of his friends, and he doesn't want it to take another victim. The young man runs away, leaving Ted behind, but Ted can't move. He feels like the cave is closing in on him. It's squeezing him like a bug. Then he sees something in the distance. There's a small crack in the ceiling. Ted crawls towards it and squeezes through. He emerges outside of the cave and collapses. The cave monster hadn't killed him. Instead, it had tossed him out of the cave like garbage. Now Ted was free, but he wasn't the same again. He started to suffer from anxiety and paranoia. He feared that the cave monster would somehow find him and drag him back into the cave. Ted tried to explain what happened to him, but nobody believed him. And that's when Ted did something crazy. He wrote a book about his adventures and posted it online. But he added a disclaimer to the story. He told people that the cave monster was real, and that it would kill anyone who entered the cave. Of course, nobody believed him. Ted was probably hoping that would happen. He knew that the monster was real, and he wanted others to know it too. Ted continued to write about his adventures caving, but he never went back to the cave. The cave monster had beaten him. To this day, nobody knows what happened to Ted. He mysteriously vanished. The last entry on his blog is titled, "The Cave Fights Back." No one ever found his body, but some people believe that the cave monster took him back.